A happy world plunged into darkness when I lost my husband. The world, once filled with happiness, was suddenly plunged into darkness when I lost my husband. Everything that once seemed important lost its meaning. I was in despair and didn't know how to go on living. The ground seemed to fall away from under my feet and I was alone, unsupported. My name is Emily. With the sun shining and warm sand under my feet, that's how my vacation to the coast started. With my friend Sarah, we felt free, as if the whole world was at our feet. The breeze was gentle on our skin, and the sea, glistening in the sunlight, beckoned to us. We spent our days lazing on the beach, sipping refreshing cocktails and laughing at our silly jokes. Time passed slowly, and every moment seemed endless. Then one day, as I was lying on the lounge chair, eyes closed and enjoying the warmth, Sarah nudged me with her elbow. I opened my eyes and saw him. He was standing nearby, tall, confident, and with a charming smile. His gaze crossed mine, and for a moment I thought everything around me froze. It was Jake. Every day, our time together grew closer. We spent hours walking along the coast, watching the sunset and listening to the sound of the waves. Our conversations grew more and more serious, and I realized that he was really interested in me as a person. We told each other about ourselves, our pasts, and our plans for the future. Jake was the kind of man who could read my mind. One evening, sitting by the sea, we took a few pictures as a keepsake. At that moment, I felt that something unusual was brewing between us. My vacation was gradually turning into something more than just a vacation. Real feelings were brewing inside me and I was ready to experience them. Every day spent with him filled me with happiness and hope. Our vacation was coming to an end, and with each day of departure approaching, my heart clenched with the anticipation of separation. It wasn't easy to part with Jake, because he had become so much more than just an acquaintance to me during those short weeks. We'd experienced so many vivid moments that it felt like we'd always been there for each other. Every moment we spent together left a deep imprint, and I knew those memories would keep me warm even on the coldest of days. The last night before we left, we sat on the beach for a long time, looking at the stars and holding hands in silence. I tried to remember every moment of that evening, the sound of the waves, the soft wind caressing my hair and the warmth of his touch. In that moment, I realized that those days had changed me forever. At the moment of parting, I could not hold back my tears, but inside me there was hope that this was not the end of our story. Perhaps fate would give us another chance to meet and our paths would cross again. As I flew home, I took with me not only my memories, but also my faith that our story would continue. After my return home, I began to long for the feeling of freedom and happiness that surrounded me at sea. Suddenly, however, among the many notifications on social media, I noticed one message that made my heart beat faster. It was from Jake. We started texting each other, sharing the minutiae of our daily lives. Every morning, I woke up thinking that today I would definitely receive a new message from him. Our conversations became an integral part of my day. We talked about everything: work, friends, how the day went, wished each other good night and good morning. It seemed that the distance between us disappeared and we continued to live the same life we had lived at the resort. Every night I looked forward to him logging onto the chat room. Those moments were the most eagerly waited for me. We could talk for hours. Sometimes our conversations turned into long talks about the future, and I found myself daydreaming about the day I would see him again. Suddenly, Jake texted me that he was going to be traveling to my city. My emotions went into overdrive. My heart beat faster, and I could hardly wait to meet him. We agreed to meet at a cozy coffee shop near the city center. That evening, I stood at the entrance of the coffee shop, nervous and excited at the same time about the upcoming meeting. When the door opened and Jake stepped inside, I felt the world around us stop. He looked just as I remembered him, tall, confident, with that same charming smile. We ordered coffee and found a secluded table in the corner. The conversation began easily and casually, as if we had never been apart. We talked and talked and talked. Every moment we spent together was like magic. We laughed until tears, sharing funny stories from our vacation. The evening flew by, leaving behind warm memories and the feeling that our relationship had reached a new level. Our bond grew stronger every day, and I realized that my feelings for him were getting stronger and stronger. We spent a lot of time together, and gradually I began to realize that I was truly in love with him. And then, after one of our romantic evenings, Jake proposed to me. It was the happiest moment of my life. I was over the moon because my love was mutual, but my joy was soon replaced by anxiety. My parents were totally against our relationship. They felt that Jake didn't meet their expectations for a future son-in-law. Status and social standing were important to them, and they didn't want to see their daughter tied to a man they didn't think was successful enough. Their arguments sounded harsh and categorical, and every conversation with them ended in arguments and frustration. I tried to explain to them that I didn't want to measure happiness by money or social status, that the main thing was love and mutual understanding, but their beliefs were too strong. I had to choose between the love of my life and the support of my family. My parents threatened to disinherit me, and since I was their only heiress, sooner or later, everything was going to be mine. This situation became a real test for my feelings and faith in myself. I went to bed every night thinking about my parents' words, but my love for Jake was so strong that no obstacle could break it. I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with this man, no matter what. My inner voice told me to listen to my heart, even if it meant going against the wishes of those closest to me. I had to make the hard choice of rejecting my parents' arguments for my own happiness. I decided that I would fight for our love, and nothing could keep us apart. We talked it over with Jake, and he supported my decision. Together, we decided that we would build our future independently of our parents' threats. We were married amongst our closest friends. The ceremony was modest, but warm and heartfelt. We exchanged vows of love and fidelity, knowing that now nothing could separate us. My parents refused to attend the wedding, but I hoped that in time they would understand and accept my choice. That day marked the beginning of a new chapter in our lives, a chapter filled with love, support, and mutual respect. We realized that there would be difficulties ahead, but we believed that we could overcome any obstacles because we had the most important thing, ourselves. Life of a married couple is always full of challenges, but we learned to cope with them together. We helped each other in difficult periods and shared the joy of each achievement. My husband was climbing the career ladder, and I found a job that I enjoyed. We rented a small apartment and were saving to buy our own place. We loved being together and we were happy. After a couple years, we were able to purchase our own home and do some remodeling. We set up a room for our future daughter. When our baby girl was born, our home was filled with even more joy and happiness. Little Amelia became everything to us, and every little accomplishment of hers made us very proud. We traveled a lot and had family gatherings. We tried to be together as often as we could. Every summer we traveled, discovering unexplored corners of the world. Vacations in nature, picnics in parks, walks along the waterfront, it was our family tradition. Jake continued to work, striving to provide a better future for our family, while I devoted most of my time to raising Amelia. In the evening, when work and worries were behind us, we would gather for dinner, discussing the previous day and making plans for the weekend. However, life made its changes, and the irreparable happened. Jake went to the sea with his friends for the weekend, planning to go jet skiing. I stayed at home with my daughter, doing the usual things and waiting for him to return. 2 days passed and he was supposed to come back in the evening, but Jake never showed up. It started to rain, and at first, I thought he was probably delayed because of a bad connection or some unforeseen situation. I tried to contact his friends, but no one answered the phone. When the next morning came and there was still no news from him, my anxiety began to grow. At first, I tried to reassure myself that everything would be all right. But an inner voice insistently whispered that something had gone wrong. I called my husband's friends again, but no one answered. So I started calling hospitals and the police, hoping to get some information. But each answer only made me more afraid. And when I was on the verge of hysterics, I finally got that dreadful call. The voice on the other end of the line told me the news I was most afraid to hear. My husband had drowned. As one of his friends told me afterward, when they decided to pack up to go home, it was already evening, starting to get dark. Jake wanted to go jet skiing again. He wanted to repeat the trick he had practiced performing. No one thought anything could happen. An hour passed while they were packing and securing the equipment, and Jake didn't come back. They rushed to find him and called the rescue services. The search continued all night, and it wasn't until morning that they found his body far away from that spot. The current had carried him away. The world around me began to crumble. Tears came from my eyes, and I couldn't stop sobbing. How could this have happened? What should I do next? These questions echoed in my head as I tried to cope with the shock. My daughter looked at me in bewilderment, not understanding what was happening, but I had to pull myself together for her sake. It was up to me now. The world once filled with happiness was suddenly plunged into darkness. Everything that had once seemed important had lost its meaning. The tears wouldn't stop flowing, and I couldn't believe it was really happening. I was desperate and didn't know how to go on living. The ground seemed to have gone out from under my feet, and I was left alone, without support. But deep down I knew I couldn't let myself drown in this ocean of pain. I had a daughter who needed me more than ever. She looked up at me with her big eyes. Her little hand reached out to me, seeking comfort and protection. I had to find the strength to keep living for her. For both of us. Despite the pain and confusion, I knew I had an obligation to stay strong. For little Amelia, for us, for the bright moments we had together. Every day became a struggle. The mornings began with heavy thoughts, but I forced myself to get up, make breakfast, and go about my daily routine. At night, when my daughter fell asleep, I allowed myself to cry, but in the morning I pulled myself together again. Step by step, day by day, I learned to live again, based on the love and memories that bound us all together. It was a long and painful journey, full of doubts and fears. But I knew that we could overcome everything if we held on to each other, and life would not stop there. It would go on.